worrying about all the. All right, guys, welcome again today. Good morning, good afternoon, good after evening, depending on where you're at in the world and when you're listening to this. But welcome to the Iconic Life podcast. This is where we gather around our virtual tables for real, soulful conversations about what it means to live an iconic life of calling, of wealth, joy, and purpose. I'm your host, Hannah Elsey. I'm the founder of Agora Wellness. I'm the creator of the Iconicity movement. Call myself a transformation midwife, an overflow activator, and I'm a movement builder of a community of visionary women and men who are choosing to lead and live lives they are wildly in love with. Here, we don't do surface level chatter. We go deep, we talk about truth, and the kind of stories that remind us that we are limitless when we are walking in our divine purpose and identity. So, when I say living iconically, here is what I mean by that. It's remembering who you were created to be and choosing to live from that place fully and unapologetically. It's saying yes to your calling, even when it's messy and stretchy, and building wealth, legacy, and joy from a place of overflow. It's leading movements, raising families, and co creating a life that feels like art. Because living iconically means you don't chase the dream, you are the dream. And today, we're going to get to dive into that with my guest. Today, we have Michelle with us. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today. So happy to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
All right, so I've got just a quick bio and then we're going to jump into our conversation. But you guys, we are so blessed to have Michelle here today because Michelle is a powerhouse. She is a five-time entrepreneur whose intention in life is to help humans become creators of their realities and live a soul-led life. Hmm. In 2019, Michelle traveled to all 50 states and interviewed 500 plus people on how they can create and how they are creating happy and fulfilling lives, and produced the American Happiness Documentary Project. Michelle has worked with 18,000 plus people across the globe at both private and public companies like Robert Half, AT&T, is it Akamai? I'm not sure if I'm butchering that name, and more, as well as spoke on the TEDx stage. She is the founder of the City Retreat in Boston to help women become creators of their realities through events, retreats, astrology parties, and private mentorship. You can join her free soul-led experiment to see what happens when you lean into doing exactly what you want. And you can follow her on Instagram at City Retreat Boston. So, Michelle, again, welcome. So happy to have you. I know that
So
was kind of that little bit of like the professional bio, but I want to give you a quick chance to just I'm going to give you the stage for a second. I want you to just introduce a little bit more about who you are, where you're coming from, and what you're doing in the world.
beautiful. Well, thank you again so much for having me. And yeah, I feel like within the past 10 years, the last decade of being an entrepreneur, five different industries, of course, I've lived kind of many different lives in those segments. And what I realized recently is that the common theme that was the through line of all of those businesses and experiences and like everything I did and created was that I was actually following my soul. I was actually, like you were saying, like leaning into that iconic way of living and being the dream. I love that so much. And so where I first started out was earlier on in my entrepreneurship journey. I actually had a cookie company and a kitchen incubator space here in Boston. And, that was my childhood dream. I had wanted to start that ever since I was 8 years old with a lemonade stand with my brothers. And I
Yay.
started that on the side of my full-time job back in 2014 and was able to build that up to going full-time in it, building out a team. And really, I was living this life that from the outside looked to be successful, right? I was like living in Boston. I had the company, it was profitable, had a team. And I found myself a couple years into that feeling really stifled in it and just feeling kind of stressed out and worried for like no reason, seemingly.
Yeah.
And it got to this point where I thought this was what I wanted to do with my life, and I just was not feeling fulfilled or that happy in it. And I wasn't miserable, right? Like it wasn't bad. It wasn't this horrible experience, but I just felt like, this isn't it. And it took
Mm,
me a long time to really evaluate what area of my life I was feeling that antsiness in. Now I've identified it as like your soul is now pulling you in a different direction, right? It's like you completed this, it's time to elevate, pivot, transform. But at the time, I thought something was wrong with me because I'm like, wow, you worked really hard, you got what you wanted. Why
mm.
aren't you happy? Why are you not feeling fulfilled?
Yeah, yeah.
So that was something where that was kind of the jumping off point to having the idea to film the documentary across the country, as you mentioned at the start, going all 50 states solo, interviewing people, and really hearing their stories on how they transformed a less than ideal situation and turned it into a life that to a lot of people was like, how did you do that? Because they're waking up excited, they're energized, right? They're fulfilled, and they're actually doing what they truly want to do, not what they should be doing or think they should be doing.
Hmm.
So within that journey, of course, learned a lot and was able to come back to Boston. I was still running the food companies because I had a team and had read the 4 Hour Work Week years and years ago, which is probably a little outdated by now, but was able to remove myself from the bottleneck of that business and allow my team to run it. And so got back to Boston. Took me a long time to actually like shift my identity from being a cookie lady, which everyone knew me as in this area, to
Right.
like the next level. What is that? And kind of step into the unknown for the first time. And so it took me about a year and a half to even like think I could do something beyond that. I was so stuck in that identity, which is so interesting looking back and kind of funny.
Yeah.
Um, and then from, doing that documentary and editing it and producing it, was able to build a brand off of that where I was going into companies and universities and doing programs for how to build a positive mindset, mental wellness, like alleviating stress, all of that good stuff.
Gotcha.
Um, and I was doing that right around 2020, kind of everything hit, and people were really looking for that. So I started doing that, which I got really good at doing workshops and group events and experiences, and then wanted to go deeper with people. So it was great because I got to work with a lot of people, but it was, in an hour-long workshop where you can't go
Mm,
super deep.
right.
So started working with people one-on-one and then expanded out more recently to the City Retreat, which is our physical space in Boston, but also still work with people virtually, where really they're tapping into their soul-led lifestyle. And I love getting clear what's the 1 year vision, what feels most alive for you right now, and then help with people actively stepping into it, not just thinking about it or like learning how to do it. It's like, okay, we're making moves because I've identified that's a strength in myself of like, let's just go, we'll figure it out, and kind
Right.
of adjust and adapt along the way.
I love it. Yeah. Just do it brave, do it scared, do it messy, all the things.
Mhm. All the
Right. Just
things.
lean in and go. And yeah, like you said, figure it out along the way. I found that's the best way to get some momentum going, I think, in life, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so I want to dive a little bit more into this documentary. Like, w- where was the moment that you decided to do that, and like, how did you like what pivoted you to that point where you're going from, like you said, the cookie lady, right, doing all this to like traveling the country and interviewing 500 plus people. Like, where did that vision come from? Like, how did that you step into that?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite stories because it was really what I identify now as my first strong intuitive hit that I followed through on. And I was sitting, so this is 2018, summer of 2018, July 5th specifically. I remember the date. And I was just at this point where, like I had mentioned, I was feeling kind of antsy in my life. I didn't know if it was the relationship I was in, if it was the business, or I was just feeling, this isn't it, right? And
Hmm.
I lied down on my couch for a second and closed my eyes. And in that moment, in like a split second, I saw a vision of myself traveling across the country, like capturing it on film. I had zero film experience, right? I didn't go to school for film. I didn't have like any experience in any of
Wow.
that, and found myself capturing how everyday people like transform their lives and create really happy and fulfilling ones and sharing it with people. And the vision was so strong, it freaked me out. I opened up my eyes. I was like, did I just see the future? It
Well, yes,
freaked me
indeed.
out. And so, yeah, so I always like to say, like, I decided in that moment, yes, I did just see the future, which you can
Huh.
always do when you do a visualization or have an intuitive hit. And I decided to put the places in motion. So, like I said, I still had the cookie company, I was still running the kitchen incubator. And what I did is, and I love that you mentioned before we press record, Sarah Blakely, because she has a quote where when you're in the early stages of your idea, like it's the most vulnerable. And so to be
Mm.
careful of like who you share it
Who you
with.
share that with? Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that quote because I remember thinking that in that moment because this was wild, right? It's like, okay, so you're going to leave this company that's successful. You're going to go travel around. Who are you going to interview? Like, that's not safe as a woman, right? You're going to go by yourself, right? All these things I could just
All
see,
the things. Yeah.
all the things. Like, I didn't really have the money just lying around to do this, right? And so I decided to keep it within myself and share it with one person that I knew would be like positive support. Like I just knew she'd be on board with it. And until I had mapped it out, like logistically, like kind of budgeted, figured out, okay, when would I leave? How would I start, doing the interviews, all that stuff. That's when I started to share it with people.
Gotcha.
Um, and it got to this point where like the vision was so strong that I was like, I need to make this happen. Even if I run out of all my money, like even if I have to walk away from this cookie company, I was like, my soul was pulling me so strong in that direction. And of course, I could never fathom what came after that until I took that first step. But
Right.
that was when I first followed that like really, really strong intuitive hit.
Wow. You
Yeah.
took that leap of faith. I love this because you said it a couple times. Your soul was calling. So like you it just couldn't get it. You could not turn away from it. You couldn't ignore it anymore. Like, just that call got super loud, right?
Mhm.
And I know that that is true for so many visionaries that I work with or I've seen or in my own life, right? Like it's the dream that even when you have the hard times, you can't just walk away from it. It doesn't leave you alone, right? Which we were kind of chatting about that before we push record as well. And actually, that's kind of the next. I want to pivot to that actually because we all know that leading an iconic life does not mean that it's a smooth road. So,
Yeah.
so uh, like even with this documentary or just what you're doing now, like what obstacles have come up that have tested you maybe the most, or some big things you can like moments you can think of, and how did you decide to move through those instead of letting those moments define you or deter you? And then looking back after on being on the other side, maybe coming through some of those challenges, what strengths or lessons were born from those seasons?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I feel like there's two main ones that have like run through. One was more internal of like feeling like I was going to be judged, feeling like no one's going to understand what I'm doing, feeling like, people would like leave, right? Like kind of that fear of abandonment in terms of
Mm-hmm.
judgment. And that was something that, especially when I had this like really strong identity, which is so funny to look back on now, in being like a cookie lady, thinking this is all I could do for the rest of my life, right? Like just thinking that people would care if I shifted and elevated, which most people don't. They're excited for you. Um,
Right.
and it was really, and I've kind of gone up against this in many iterations of the businesses I've had, and kind of the steps I've taken is like the next thing I want to share. I feel like I'm on the edge of like a little bit ahead of the time, a little bit like even when I was starting getting into doing astrology and things like that, it wasn't as mainstream. I'm feeling like I'm going to be judged because I was doing this and now I'm doing this, right? And what I realize is just like the more that you push through that feeling of uncomfortableness, knowing that some people might drop off or some people might make comments, but it has no reflection on you, of course.
Hmm.
Um, knowing that, and also knowing that like when you take the action, when you do it for the first time, it's probably going to feel uncomfortable, just like allowing that to sit next to you, like allowing yourself to feel that. I like to give
Yeah.
the analogy of having it be in the back seat of the car, right? Like your soul is always driving, it's always has its foot on the pedal, but the uncomfortableness or the fear of judgment or whatever is fine to be in the back. We
To be
don't
a
get in the
passenger, it's
way.
okay. Right.
Yeah.
They don't drive the car, but they can be a passenger if they need to for a minute.
Right,
Yeah, I hear you.
right. It's like, I got you, don't worry. Like, I know you're there, but we're gonna keep going.
Yeah.
Um, and I found that this is really, and this is something I even had to remember yesterday when I'm like launching a new program. And I'm like, You haven't necessarily done it in this way before, right?" And it's like the first time you do it, it's probably gonna feel uncomfortable. You're not gonna know what's gonna happen. The second time you do it, it'll feel a little more normal. The third time, it just becomes who you are.
Yeah. You just start building that muscle
So
and you start flowing with it instead of, right. Yeah, I get that.
yeah, and I remember I like way probably like a year and a half, 2 years ago now, I wanted to do my first astrology event, and I had really mainly been doing social events for the group that I was running, and I remember I was so scared of that judgment. And then
Mm.
literally I just was like, well, whatever, we're gonna do it. And I released the event and it sold out within 24 hours. So it's like, what am I getting in my own way for? Right. So that's been a thing for me. And then also, I have to remind myself of that always to this day. And
Mm.
then also, external thing is like I've never really had the funds to do what I wanted to do, quite frankly. I've never had like a just like a pile of cash waiting in my bank account because I'm always kind of evolving and investing in business things and just like living my life and making things happen. And so I think that's often with entrepreneurs, maybe a little less talked about is like investing before you're ready, putting down the deposit even though you don't know what's going to happen. Like you have to see the
Mm,
vision before it's reality, or else no one else will. And
yeah.
so I feel like there's been times in my life that I've compared myself to my friends that are in corporate jobs and like have had this kind of steady paycheck and kind of feeling like, oh my God, I'm behind in life or like, da, 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 da. But I can look
Hmm.
back on my life and be like, oh, I actually did everything I wanted to do. And I feel alive and fulfilled every day. Like, how great is that? And
Priceless,
also
right?
too, like there's always kind of a way to make it work.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I would say there's like that's kind of been the external one, but it's never really stopped me. It's just been kind of like a something I've had to work on reframing my mindset around because like
Mm,
society conditions you to be a very certain way with finances and money. And
hmm.
then that internal of like fear of judgment, fear of abandonment.
Okay. And just being very rooted in, like you said, it's not about you. And it's so interesting because you mentioned like we're afraid of what people might say or think of us, and then you find out that people most often don't care that you're elevating, and they're like maybe even cheering you on. And I had to laugh because yeah, like the fact that we spend so much time worrying about what people are thinking of us sometimes, when in fact, by the way, most people are not thinking of us. Right? Right? Because we're all thinking about our own selves and worrying about ourselves and how are we presenting it. Like it's so liberating actually to have that perspective. Because like, oh, I don't have to worry about anybody else. And I just have to worry about myself and my calling and walk in that. Right. Uh,
Yeah.
and like you mentioned, you may have somebody who unfollows you, or you may have someone who says something, but like that's not about you if you are solid in who you are and what you're doing, right? That's more about them, and that's, with much love and grace, we can continue on, right? Um,
Yeah.
but it's so freeing to be like, oh, I don't have to worry about what the rest of the world is thinking about me. That's not the point here. And that's a very
Yeah, and it's
liberating.
oh sorry, go ahead.
Mm-mm, go ahead. Mm-mm.
I was just gonna say that I've even it's interesting because like normally no one's thinking of you anyway, but I've actually had moments where it's almost like that worst fear did come true of like I had two closer friends that had actually met through one of my events that I had held. They had met through that. And then they turned on me, like kind of out of the blue, like didn't tell me anything was wrong. And I'm like, I didn't think we had an issue here. And it
Yeah.
was just interesting because it was like the more that, like when that actually, of course, that stings when you're like, oh, I thought this person was my friend, right?
Hmm.
Um, and you see it come out and then it's kind of like well when that does even happen, right, you realize you're okay and it's like all right,
Yes.
kind of a
Uh-huh.
initiation of
Yes.
I'm stepping into the truth and I spoke
Right.
something that like hit them in some
Yeah,
way.
you're like, ooh, up level, new level activated, right? Because it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I survived that. Like what I thought was and I don't even know that we actually think it through, and that's the whole thing there too, is right. It holds a maybe a power over us because you don't actually like, well, what would happen if in fact somebody said something unkind to me or whatever? Like, would I survive that? And then when you do, you're like, oh, oh, well, in fact, new level activated, right? And it again very freeing because you're like, okay, that's not what this is about. That's not what I'm here for.
Right, exactly.
I 100% understand and agree. And it's like you can literally just get to the point, like you mentioned, it is not that it doesn't sting sometimes. So let's be very honest, right? Because yes, you do have to move through some of the challenges of those and like accept it because we are humans and we do have feelings and we are social creatures who, by the way, do want to be accepted into the group, right? Like that's a very strong instinct, but at the same time, it's okay. It's okay, and it's so much better to follow that calling.
For sure. Yeah, it's so worth it. And I feel like sometimes people may do it intentionally. I feel like pretty rarely, but then sometimes even it's the unintentional comments that can kind of throw you the most. Like I've had, close friends or family members, even when I wanted to go full into American Happiness and like building out that brand with the corporate workshops and things like that. I had my dad and brother, like the people that I know love me, that are closest to me, right? Be like, why would you walk away from the cookie company? Like, isn't this what you wanted? And it's
Yeah.
like that will like kill your soul right there is
Uh-huh.
listening to that. Yeah, it's sometimes it gets a little sneaky where it's like you got to tune in and
Uh-huh.
be like, okay, yeah, that's their reality, but what is my soul pulling me towards now?
Exactly. Because it's like you mentioned, it's sometimes it is from a place of love from those who love us because they don't know, they can't see your calling or understand it because it's not theirs, right? And so
Mhm.
maybe they're just saying something because they love you and they want the best for you. And what from their perspective, it's, oh my gosh, so the train wreck, what are we doing here, right? But so it can come from a place of love, but that's why we have to be so like clear on our calling and our clear on our calling. I think that's actually the statement right there, so that you can be very grounded in what you're doing and move through those challenges. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So, speaking of iconic lives and choosing these things, what does living an iconic life look like for you on your like day to day? Not just the big moments of like starting a documentary and things like that, but like on a daily basis, what are maybe some choices or practices that you do or values that or boundaries that you even keep that are kind of your anchors or your day-to-day things that keep you kind of focused and grounded on that building that
Mhm.
iconic life.
Yeah, I love this question. And I feel like it's having the freedom to do what you want when you want. I've always
Mm,
come back through that or to that. And living a life that where you're waking up in the morning and you're excited for the day ahead and you're proud of what you're creating, even if you're not there just yet, right? Like you're proud and it's energizing you. So I feel like from a really practical level, I love being able to wake up naturally. You know, sometimes I'll set the alarm if I want to go to the workout class early or whatever it means, but that is really part of an iconic life for me is being able to do that and not having to rush in the mornings. Of
yeah.
course, there's always exceptions there. And then I also too, I love creating time for creativity in my days. And like I have actually designed my business now where there is a lot of freedom and a lot of space. It wasn't always that way with other companies, but that was something that when I was seeking out mentors and how to build the next business, I was like, I want to bake a lot of freedom and creativity in. So with every offer that I do or every client that I take on or like any experience, I make sure that there's time for that creativity within the day. And sometimes that will come through in like a post shared to social media or, you know, to my email list or whatever that may be. Sometimes it's just simply for the sake of creating, which sometimes I have a hard time doing because I want to tie it to the business in some way.
Yeah.
Um, but taking that space and taking time to also check in with like if I get invited to something or an event, checking in with do I actually want to go to this or would my energy be better just chilling at home? And some of my friends now know that even if I'm not doing anything, if I say I'm in lounge mode, that means I'm not leaving the apartment. And I just really
Love
not
that.
having to do something that you don't want to do is my version of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I think I heard from you it's freedom to do what you want to do and space for creativity. Does that
Mhm.
wrap it up in a nutshell? Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
and it's interesting too because when it becomes your normal way of living is like what you wanted is your normal life. I sometimes forget. I'm like, wow, like most people don't have the freedom that I have, right? Because it just becomes
Yeah.
normalized, and so that's something that I
Yeah.
like to come back to when I'm having an off day or not feeling motivated. It's like, okay, but you actually have this like beautiful space.
Amazing.
That,
Yeah.
yeah.
What, yeah, deep gratitude. Yeah, my goodness, you're correct. Most people are running according to someone else's schedule, right? Someone
Mhm.
else's plan for their life and routine for their life and schedule. Like, yeah, oh my goodness. I understand that. Building freedom. That obviously I'm still straddling a bit of the business world or corporate world because I still work. And it's an interesting thing because I'm very much in this identity of the entrepreneur and like having space and creating space. And I'm taking steps for it, but I'm also still tethered to this thing here. And it's so like because you're caught between two worlds. And like you said, not most people don't have that. And so like it's interesting like having conversations and this one environment and then having conversations like we're having today in a whole different perspective. And you're like, oh my, it's like that like the duality, there's very A and B, very night and day, very different experiences, right? And like, but it makes it that much sweeter and clearer about what I'm trying to build, right? Because like,
Yeah.
oh, this is amazing. And so grateful every day for the chance to get to build that and do that and have a mission in life. Like I think that's part of it, right? Having a purpose and like knowing that I'm in alignment when I'm doing this work because it's not just about a lot of it is about freedom, but it's also about like you mentioned that soul's call, like walking in alignment with that, that brings so much satisfaction on top of it as well.
Yeah. And I think it's also too where because I've kind of normalized that to a degree, there's of course edges and things like that, but um sometimes I forget it's like walking away when I'm doing like an astrology party for a group of friends and they're like, "Oh my God, this is the best thing ever. Like you are doing exactly what you're meant to do." And I walk away from that and I feel so fulfilled and so content and I'm like, can you just believe I got like paid this amount to like be in this environment to share astrology with, you know what I mean? It's just so like most people don't understand it. Even my friends will be like, what do you actually do all day? Like, and I'm like, well, I like Margaret, I'm checking in with clients, I do all these things. But it is different where it's not like that traditional kind of clocking that we're often like conditioned to map to in terms of work and impact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Well, so Michelle, I mean, we've talked so much about this, but you have chosen to not just live differently, but also to lead differently in your work and whatnot, and the movements that are leading. And so, what ripples are you most proud of creating in your work currently, um, for your family, for your community? Because you mentioned like you have your place in Boston, um, but in the work that you're bringing, what are some things that maybe are new and alive for you right now that you are offering or building out? And how do you see your calling evolving in this next season?
Mm, yeah. So this question's so beautiful because I feel like you won't ever know the full ripple effect out, right? The full impact you're making. I remember
True.
going a bit of a side tangent, but years ago, back in 2017, before I'd made the jump into from the cookie company, I went to this entrepreneur conference and I was standing in line for lunch and this guy in front of me starts talking to me, and we're talking for probably 40 seconds. And he said one line to me that completely changed the way I approach my life. And he will never know the impact that that one line made to me,
Mm,
right? Like how powerfully that affected me. And knowing that for you too, it's like whatever you're saying, however you're approaching things, people are watching and listening, and you have that power in just one line. And
yeah.
he said to me, Michelle, every year I want to look back on my life and not even recognize myself from a year prior. And for that, that just felt like, oh, yes,
Wow.
like I would love to do that too.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so that was like just a beautiful moment, which has had such a ripple effect out. And I've gone on to share that with other people, right, and all these different things. But what I found in what I'm doing is the ripple effect is on a very tangible, practical level, like the women that have met at my events that like have now gone on to, I saw one of them on Instagram was getting married and literally her bachelorette party was like six of those girls were all there that she had met at the event. So it's like if I had never had the idea to do the event, right? If I had never actually put it out there, they never would have met. Who knows what, like
Yeah.
if they would have, created those friendships or not. And so
Yeah.
it's like that ripple effect out and just all those memories through anyone that meets through you or, at your events or experiences. And then also the mindset and energetic ripple that really my intention is like for life is to allow people to reprogram their own mindsets and identity in ways that they show up in the world and that ultimately affects them and the people that they're around day in and day out, right? So it's like, yes, I've given workshops to hundreds of people and they've had their own ripples, right? But what I'm really excited for now, because I feel like finally, after a decade of doing different things and being in different industries, now I feel like your purpose is in small moments, of course, also in big moments. And sometimes you don't even know what your purpose is, right? It's like the impact you made on someone or that one line you said. But I'm finally feeling at this point, I'm like, now I see where everything is stacking. Like now I can see how I can like package this and create what really my life's work is and what really, at least at this point in time, I'm meant to share and create. So what my main
Hmm.
focuses on are right now are you'd mentioned at the start, I have a free soul led experiment. And essentially it's let's lean into what you actually want to do, not what you think you should be doing, and have
Hmm.
some fun with it. And see what actually happens when you follow your intuition, right? When you tap into energetics, when you tap into aligning your life with astrology, when you actually do the thing you're thinking about doing, but you're scared you're going to be judged for, right? And see what happens and just have some fun with it. And that's leading into my year-long mastermind called the Soul-Led Lifestyle. So it's essentially stepping into that just being your way of life and of course creating everything you want in your life, whether it be in love, business, wellness, friendships, adventure, purpose. But that is really where I'm excited because I feel like when you are able to understand the language of your soul and you're able to like hear it, tune into it, right? You can never go wrong because that's exactly why you are here on this earth at this time. And it's just like so powerful to see in my own life, but also in private clients. And so I want to do this in a group setting where the women can support each other and be that positive
Yeah.
support that like see you as your future self, your soul-led self now. Because like you were saying, and what I kind of alluded to in my story, it's like often your friends and family, they love you. And a lot of the times, of course, they support you, but they see you as your past self or your current self. Like they can't necessarily see who you're stepping into. And so it can be so helpful to have that supportive community that sees you as that and ultimately helps you be pulled up towards it.
I love that. Yeah, and one of the like pillars of my work is community and fellowship, like doing it together, linking arms together, because we do so much better when we're created to be like in community, right? And that's like you see such power that what is that old parable? If you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. Yeah,
Mm, mhm,
and I actually just say if you want to go fast and far go together, right? Because it's
mhm,
not that it slows you down. I think it actually speeds up some of your like because when you need a little bit of support or a little bit of an exhortation or like encouragement or like, hey, kick your butt, it's good to have those soul friendships who can like be that for you and help who will be with you and witness you, right? I think that's so sacred and powerful. I love that
mhm.
though.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where, because I feel this myself, even where it's like the people that I have in my kind of physical reality here in Boston, they're all great, but they're kind of living a very different life, right? Whether they be in entirely in corporate or they have different priorities, right? They're not interested in self-growth or like creating something new, right? And so it can be so fun when you actually meet people that are on the same kind of level and bandwidth as you. And it's so energizing to be like, okay, I'm
100%.
not alone in this. You feel
Yeah.
like you know who you are and you have that permission to step into it.
Right. There are other people who think like me. I'm not just crazy. Yeah, no, that's so true, right? Like, because kind of similar to me, I don't have a lot of people around me who are into that. And it's funny, I laugh about like entrepreneurship. I feel like one of the reasons I love it so much is it's like personal development and get paid for it, right? Like, it's like, every year I look back, I'm like, I don't recognize myself from the year before, right? I think that's a beautiful statement because I do feel like that's what I've seen. I just when you said that, I was like, oh, yeah, I can kind of see like the leaps and bounds of growth that I see in myself and of course others as well. But like I love it for me, right? Like that's so amazing. And so like being able be in a community of people who think the same and are who are running after, their new levels and getting better. Like, yeah, it's priceless. It's priceless.
Mhm.
All right. All right. So as we're kind of winding down a bit, which this has been a great conversation. I'm really glad we had it. I think we could probably talk for a lot longer. But for someone who's listening, who is maybe feeling that tug, that call in their soul, of what they really want to do, but they haven't yet stepped into it, um, for whatever reason, right? But what is maybe what's one truth that you would tell them, or something that you would offer to them, or maybe one small brave step that you would challenge them to take today?
Mm. Yeah, something with this that I love is knowing that you can always get back to where you're at today because you've already manifested it, right? You've already gone through the skills you need, the steps you've taken. You can always get back to where you're at. And so if you go after that soul led thing and you decide, it's not for me, right? Or like you don't love it or whatever it may be, you can always get back here. So it's like, why not try it out? Why not take that
Mm,
first step? And then
yeah.
what I said before is often it's like just knowing you're going to have self-doubt, allowing it to sit with you, knowing you're going to feel uncertainty, you're probably going to be freaked out, right? Like actually going after it, knowing that's totally normal, and also knowing that the first time you do it, it'll freak you out or feel uncomfortable. The second time, it'll be a little bit better. And then the third time, it just is who you are as a human being. And that's how you just constantly begin to really like rapidly expand into what your soul is here to do at this moment.
That's awesome. Yeah. Having that mindset of like one, two, three, right? That's actually really good, right? Because I think when we know that there's like, oh, there's there's a pathway here. I can get through that no matter how hard it's this first time, right? But if you know it's going to get better the second time, and third time, it's going to be like, this is like butter. We're just going. This is who I am. That's like, oh, okay, I can get through this. I can get through that. So I
Yeah, I
love
love
that.
that. I saw this video on Instagram like a week ago, and it's saying, if you knew that you were 10 no's away from your first yes, like how quickly would you
Wow.
want those no's? And I love that, right? Of that fear
Yes.
projection, or you can kind of like tweak that to whatever fear is coming up right now.
Yeah.
But I love that so much. It's like, yeah, it's
It's that.
always on the other side. You just have to keep going.
Yeah. It's that go for no theory, right? Yeah. No. Oh, that's so powerful. And again, we were talking about this before we hit record, but like when we feel the down, right? It's like, no, like if you just keep that mentality or that imagery in your head about like you're just 10 no's away or like, you're just like right on the other side, don't give up, right? Because you're right there on the edge of your breakthrough, whatever that is, right? And if you just knew that it was only 10 more no's, would you not keep going? It's like, yes, and keep going. So I love that. All right, Michelle, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so if you just Google Michelle Wax, Wax, that is actually my last name. A lot of people think it's fake. Everything will pop right up. So whether it be Instagram or my website, if you want to join the Soul Led Experiment completely free, we have such a great group of women in there. So that's a combo of like Telegram audios on the go that you can listen to from wherever, and a couple of replay calls too that you can tune into. So um,
Nice.
I've been loving that because that's also helpful for myself too, of like whatever that I'm
Yes.
doing, just good reminders.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's like my overflow, like all the different ones. But yeah, I play them, like I create it, but then I go back through it and do it, right? Because like it works. It works.
Right, right. It's so funny too when you're like leading a group, you remember. You're like, there's a
Yeah, oh,
reason.
that's right.
I
Yeah,
know this works. I need to just do it. It's often just doing it.
so true. So true.
Yeah.
100%. All right. So as we're closing out, just a couple fun questions, okay, to kind of wrap it up tonight. What is a favorite drink or food that you are enjoying?
I can't go wrong with iced coffee. And I love anything Greek food. So like a Greek
Ooh.
bowl, gyro,
Hmm.
anything like
Good choices. I love both. Uh,
that.
are you like, do you make your own iced coffee or like, are you a flavored iced coffee girl or what's your,
I'm not a flavored. I can't really do the sweet coffees. Occasionally, like maybe one pumpkin spice a season, but
yeah.
I have my Dunkin' here. It kind of depends on my mood. I mean, this is out right now, but depends on my mood. I am guilty of getting iced coffee probably more frequently than I should, but it's just so much more fun. Someone just gives it to you versus making
Than
it.
having to make it. Yeah. It's
Like
like, well, thank you very much.
yeah, this morning we were talking about it's like really blustery and rainy in Boston. I went to the gym with my friend this morning, and that helped get me out of like just kind of a funk.
Funk. Yeah.
But we were driving back. I was like, "Do you mind if we stop at Dunkin' real quick?" Oh yeah, I might make coffee at home. I was like, you know what? If this $4 coffee like brings joy and energy to this day ahead, I am all for it. So
It's bringing it. That's right. It's
yeah,
worth it.
right, right.
All right. What is a dream vacation spot that's on your bucket list?
Ooh. So I feel like I've been lucky. I've traveled to most of the places I want to go. I would love to go to Bali or the Maldives, like that.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
anything that's a tropical, warm vibe. And I love Santorini. I was there once, but I would
Okay.
love to go back there.
Awesome. All right. And then last question. What is a favorite book that you've read recently or are reading recently, or maybe even a podcast that you're listening to that you would recommend?
Yes, so I love the book 10x is easier than 2x, and that's kind
Oh,
of been
yeah.
when I first read that. Have you read it as well?
Yes. I love that book. It's awesome.
It's
Yeah.
so good, and it's so comforting because the whole concept, of course, is like you got to get rid of 80% of what you've been doing to like emphasize that 20% and like really go big with it. And it's been so helpful to like reread that and go back when I feel like I'm cutting things out or I'm letting go of things. And at first, the humans like, oh my God, this is
Yeah.
like money or this is whatever, right? And I'm like,
Right.
I'm comfortable with this. Um, but that book has just been like so life-changing. And it also too is just kind of speaking to my soul, where I feel like most people would not have that approach with their life at all. And I'm like obsessed with it. I'm like, yes, this is exactly it.
Yeah, it's a great book. Yeah, definitely love it. Oh, Michelle, thank you again. This has been such a great conversation. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, thank you for having me. This was
Of
so fun.
course, of course. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today at the Iconic Life podcast. If today's conversation stirred something in you, please share this episode with a friend. Leave us a review. Give us some feedback online. Come connect with us. We love to hear back from you guys, hear your breakthroughs, hear your aha moments. Remember, an iconic life isn't built in the someday, it is chosen today. So until next time, keep living boldly, joyfully, and iconically. Remember, every choice you make leaves a mark, so make them wisely. See you back here next time.